Welcome to the LDN Radio Show, brought to you by the LDN Research Trust. I'm your host, Linda Elsiegood. I have an exciting lineup of guest speakers who are LDN experts in their field. We will be discussing low-dose Naltrexone and its many uses in autoimmune diseases, cancers, etc. Thank you for joining us.
Today we're joined by Natalie from the United States, who not only takes LDN for the triad, being MCAS, EDS and POTS, but for many other conditions as well. Thank you for joining us today, Natalie.
Thank you for having me.
So could you tell us, when did you first started to notice you had issues?
As a child, I had a lot of frequent dislocations, and we had a lot of relatives that also had dislocations and aneurysms and just a lot of odd symptoms. But we chalked it up to being a ballerina and very flexible for that. It continued until I was about 18, and then it got to the point where I was dislocating fingers just by writing, very simple everyday tasks that were impacting my ability to function. So we started initially treating for lupus because they thought that I had the mallard rash across my face. And when I was 27, I finally met a rheumatologist who worked for Johns Hopkins. He was also was a diagnostician, dual board certified, Dr. Peter Holt, and he diagnosed me with Ehlers-Danlos hypermobility form. And at that point, a lot of the other symptoms kind of started to fall into place. And within a year or two, I had a full diagnosis.
Mm-hmm. So when you had that diagnosis, what were your symptoms at that time?
A lot of frequent dislocations. I tore a lot of tendons and ligaments, like my gastrocnemius. I tore it in half just walking down a stair one day. It was just constant weird injuries. I also had some weird organ dysfunction, different things going on. Then I started with the POT symptoms, where every time I would have a surgery, which I averaged about 3 to 4 surgeries a year, and each time I would have a surgery, I would wake up with POT symptoms, and they'd have to, turn me upside down to keep my blood pressure up, and I'd end up in the ICU with POTS being pretty severe. So that was actually one of my worst symptoms. And then I started having some really abnormal blood work, so they actually did a bone marrow biopsy, and that's where they found out I had the rare form called monoclonal mast disease. And at that point, I came to Dr. Afrin, who started treating that portion of it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Just walk us through your other conditions while we're going through this first stage.
Okay. I have something really rare called hyper IgD. Your IgD is supposed to be below 20, and mine is anywhere between 30 and 40 when they check it. So it's pretty bad, but I don't have there's a rare familial deficiency that can cause it, and I do not have that one. I have low IgG. I was born with it low. I've tried infusions. It'll come up temporarily a little bit, but it's never quite normal. I have lichen sclerosis. Initially, it was just a few small patches. Now it's everywhere, so they actually think it's lichen planus and lichen erosive, I think it's what it's called, because it's actually eating holes away in my skin, and I have a couple open large sores right now because of it. So we just sent a biopsy out Monday for that to see what's going on there. I have Raynaud's in both my hands and my feet pretty severely. I have an inability to regulate my body temperature, so something small like going outside can really throw me off, and then it triggers all of my POT symptoms. I've had multiple strokes, TIAs. I have my monoclonal mast disease. I recently was hospitalized for 6 weeks, 5 of which I was in the ICU. I have chronic anaphylaxis. And when I say chronic, I mean it can the first day in the hospital was 28 times. They don't know what set it off, except someone had given me an IV because I have a difficult time maintaining hydration at home. So I go and I get IV services. And if they give me a cold bag, I tend to start with anaphylaxis. They don't really know why. So the anaphylaxis, I went through 28 EpiPens. in the first 24 hours I was there. And at that point, they put me on an epi drip to keep my airway open and prevent the angioedema. I have been intubated for it. Since we figured out the epi drip works, though, I haven't been intubated as often. It used to be maybe 4 to 5 times a year. Now I think it's only was like twice last year. So that's an improvement. I think that's real. I have psoriasis. I know that doesn't really matter. It's not a big deal, but with the lichen, it makes for some fun rashes. What else? When I'm given epi, my heart rate does the opposite, so it drops down into the 20s and 30s. So they actually have a difficult time maintaining my heart rate and keeping my lung open at the same time. That was another big issue. And then I have a lot of pain. I do have osteoarthritis. I did have my C5 through C7 fused. I'm actually going to have C2 through C5 fused at the end of the summer because that's a mess. I have thoracic outlet syndrome on both sides. I've had my first 2 ribs removed now, and it's still collapsing on my right side. So they're looking at removing a portion of the third. I was born with cervical ribs. I had to have those removed. I've had rectofills. I've had to have fixed twice. I've had my bladder fell twice. I had to have a sling and mesh put in to hold everything up. Now I'm getting ready to have an implant to control my urge to urinate and defecate in my spine. We're going to do that in the next few weeks. That's about it.
Okay. Wow. So, how long did it take you to find a doctor to be able to help you? I know you mentioned Dr. Afrin. Was he the first doctor who you would say truly helped?
No, Dr. Peter Holt was wonderful. He really did work very hard at trying to figure things out. At 28 was when I had my first anaphylaxis, and they actually thought initially it was carcinoid syndrome because the symptoms matched just so well, and they did find a mass. It ended up being benign, but I did have to have a tumor removed from the bottom of my spine that went to my colon. So that he worked very hard. He wasn't familiar with MCAS or monoclonal mast disease or anything. He did research it and found out about it. And then he was the one that gave me Dr. Afrin's name. He said, Dr. Afrin or Dr. Maitland are like the 2 best in the country, in our area of the country at least. If you can get to either one of these, that would be great. At the time, I think it was like $4,000 to go to Dr. Afrin for the first 2 appointments. So it took a couple years to save up. That's a lot of money for those of us who are legally disabled. So we did save up. It did take several years. And then Dr. Afrin was the first one who really made a difference on the mast portion of my symptoms. Mm-hmm. I don't know what would have happened without him.
Okay. So what would you, if you had, I know you have so many things going on, but if you had to describe a typical day that you had all the things you had to cope with from when you woke up to when you went to bed, could you talk us through that?
Well, I have TPN that runs overnight. So in the morning, I shut off my TPN and try to make sure my lines are all flushed and everything's good on that end. Sometimes I wake up and the TPN's not finished. So then I try to get dressed around the TPN. And then I take a shower, however that looks, depending on, like, right now I only have a pick, so it's easy to shower. But when I had a central, the central one, and that's a little bit harder. So I try to shower around it the best I can. Sometimes that requires some help. I do have a lot of problems with my shoulders dislocating, so I don't have hair. I have alopecia, but you still need to scrub your head. So I still need help with like anything above the shoulder or washing my face and those kinds of things. Mm-hmm. Also, it seems to trigger POTS, so I can't take warm showers at all. I have to take kind of neutral showers, I call them, neither hot nor cold. Then I come down and I get my IVs ready for the day because I do IV hydration at home now. I used to have to go somewhere and have it, but now we do it mostly at home. So I get that all just set up so when it's ready, I have it ready to go. And sometimes I'll mix my TPN then because it's good for 24 hours, and it just means at night it's just easier to hook it up. Then I usually take any vitamins or medicines that I need to take. And then I sit down and sometimes if my stomach's okay, I can eat and drink. So I might have like a little warm tea, if I can tolerate it. Then I sit a lot. I know that sounds terrible. I read a whole lot. I read usually a book a day, just because I'm so limited on what I can do now. I do have pets, so we do sit and, visit with them. We run a cat rescue. We rescue feral cats and get them fixed, and then we try to home their kittens if possible. So a lot of times I make phone calls for that because that's something I can just feed it. But it's not predictable when I'll be able to. And when if I'm having a good day, I can. If I'm not, I can't. I average 3 to 4 medical appointments a week. I only know that because WellSpan charts it for me on my login on my portal. So I average 3 to 4 appointments a week now. So a lot of days I have to go to an appointment. I can't make them too early because, the TPN is 12 hours. So I try to do those later in the day if possible, but not too late because my POTS worsens about 5 o'clock. I don't know why. No one's been able really to tell me, but that's been my symptoms. I have to wear a mask, not because of COVID, but because people's perfume. People wear a lot of perfumes and detergents and different scents like that can cause anaphylaxis for me. I can't ride in the car even with a mask if somebody's wearing perfume. So whoever drives me, I have to ask them not to wear perfume ahead of time. I am very lucky. I have lots of friends and family that will take me to my appointments because I can legally drive, but I can't right now because of my neck. And the POTS issues just make it not a good idea. So I haven't driven outside of my own property for quite a while. And then I'll come home, and if it's a really good day, I might help prep dinner for my spouse. If it's not, I'll just go and lay down after the doctors. And then we did try to eat as a family, even though I don't participate in the meal. We do, I do like to sit there with my daughter and my spouse and visit and hear about everybody's days. And then we just sit around in the evening with their animals and, chat and visit, and that's usually about it.
Mm-hmm. And has that improved since you started all your treatments?
My pain has improved on the LDN tremendously. I didn't really have any faith in it at all. No offense. I don't know. I hadn't experienced a lot of relief from the pain on any of the medicines. I was on oxycodone for 10 years for pain, and then one day I decided it just wasn't helping. And against my doctor's wishes, I just stopped taking it because it just seemed silly to take a medicine that wasn't really helping. Maybe it did in the beginning, but I think your body adjusts to it. Whereas with the LDN, it seems to be each month I'm a little bit better. And, I cross my fingers saying that just because, if I can even maintain where I'm at now, I would be happy because the pain is at least 30 to 40% better, which is the most improvement I've seen out of all the medicines we've tried. And we've tried dozens. I do not know yet if it's helping the mast symptoms because I started it at a point when my mast was just really, really flared. I'd had a couple surgeries back to back. And my body does not like surgery, at all. It freaks out every time we have surgery. So we did a couple surgeries back to back. We had to. They weren't optional surgeries. And so it's hard to know, is it getting better because of time between surgeries or is it getting better because the LDN's working on that? It is improving my rashes. Or at least it's improved since I've started taking it. I can't say if it's because of that. I just know that my pain is drastically better and my rashes are starting to really improve.
Mm-hmm. We found with lots of members who have skin issues, it takes longer for them usually to notice anything. So,
I'm hopeful.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, once you've been on LDN, how long have you been on it now?
Not quite 6 months.
Yeah. It could take 18 months before you see the full benefits. So I'm quite hopeful that you will continue improving. I don't like the thought of you having so many surgeries. I mean, is there anything that can be done to help with that?
Well, like things like my rectum came out, and you can't really walk around with your rectum outside of your body. So like that, we kind of had to do that surgery.
No,
We
yes,
wanted.
I understand that, but I was hoping that in time there wouldn't be the need to have the surgeries that are vital, or any surgeries.
Yeah, that would be ideal. But the EDS for me, I'm considered profoundly affected. I don't know the scale over there, but over here I have the highest number possible. So I end up having like major issues. Most of them are organs falling out of my body. Has been really common. Like my neck has to be fixed. They told me I'm risking paralysis because I put it off too long. So that's an issue. I have craniocervical instability, so that has to be addressed. Those are things that I can't really help. Like, I had zero blood flow by the time they did my thoracic outlet surgery. It had been at 10% for a long time, and then they tested it, and they had to do surgery that next day. So none of my surgeries except, I guess you could say some of them are optional. The rectus still didn't have to be fixed, but it was getting impossible to have a bowel movement. So, like, I would love to say that maybe I won't have as many surgeries. Like, that would be my dream. Unfortunately, it's just every time I think that, like, that's doing better, something bad has happened.
Oh, dear. That is terrible. That is terrible.
It is.
Yeah. So, there are some very good doctors out there now that specialise in EDS.
I go to Dr. LaValle. He himself has classical EDS, and he treats all of my like EDS injuries, like when I tear my gastrocnemius or my ACL or any of those kinds of injuries. He treats those, and we always go with the non-surgical approach first, even if it takes longer, just because the surgeries are so triggering for the mast disease.
Yeah.
So we do try to do that portion pretty well. And he has been amazing because he understands what it's like to live with this disease.
Yeah.
He does not have mast issues at all, but he does get all the EDS stuff. And then he generally guides me like to who would be the best for each, if there's something outside of his scope of practice. He has been wonderful about finding me other people who specialize with the EDS.
Mm-hmm. And whereabouts are you in the US?
I live in the Gettysburg, Pennsylvania.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
I live right outside of that, and it's only like 800 people. But I travel either to Hopkins, which is like an hour away in Baltimore, or an hour north to Hershey Medical Center, both of which are pretty good for our area. I mean, Hopkins is really good. I don't know if you know of them, but
Yes,
they've been pretty helpful.
Mm-hmm. But even an hour in a car, if you're not comfortable, is a long way.
It is.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your story with us today, and I sincerely hope that even if you have to have surgeries, they are few and far between.
Oh, you're so kind. Thank you so much.
Well, you take care. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
I'm Dr. Leonard Weinstock, a guy who's been prescribing LDN since 2005, and I've seen the wonders. And I keep on seeing them, especially in hard-to-diagnose conditions. They're not that hard to do, but once you know about mast cell activation syndrome, postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, and Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, you'll find that 17% of your friends or relatives have one or more of these conditions, and you can help them. We're making a documentary to wake up the medical community, to educate the population, but we need funding. So please fund whatever you can afford, no matter how little. www.mcasfund.com. That's mcasfund.com.
Any questions or comments you may have, please email me, Linda, Linda, at ldnrt.org. I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you for joining us today. We really appreciated your company. Until next time, stay safe and keep well.